U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Israel, where he's met with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The two have started a press conference moments ago. Both men said their nations were committed to the destruction of Hamas in Gaza and the return of hostages. Palestinian militants are still holding there. Rubio said earlier he'd seek answers from Netanyahu on his next moves in Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed growing impatience with Israel to end the war in Gaza, especially after Israel targeted Hamas leaders in Qatar, a key U.S. ally. Let's quickly listen in to that press conference that's still going on.
About this idea of, as some have talked about, a Gideon's Operation Gideon's Chariot, kind of or a continuation of the offensive, or an expansion of the offensive, potentially this month in Gaza City.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The best way for me to put it to you is that the purpose, of our conversations have been about what the president. I'll restate what the president has repeatedly said. He wants every single hostage released. He wants Hamas eliminated as a threat, and he wants to then have the United States be helpful in rebuilding Gaza for the future that's going to be peaceful and prosperous and not have elements like Hamas operating. That's the goal. Now, how do we achieve that? How do we get there? That's what we're always talking about. That's what we talked about today. And that's going to continue to be the focus of our engagement in this. We want all of the hostages out, all of them, every single one of them, both living and deceased, all of them. There should never have been hostages. This should never have happened. Okay, this happened because on October 7th, these animals, these barbaric animals, conducted this operation, and against innocent people that had nothing to do with any of this. And that's why this all started. We've forgotten that. People have forgotten that that's where this all began. That's why the president keeps saying, remember October 7th. We wouldn't even be having these conversations right now if these barbarians had not done what they did. So this is what brought us to this point. It needs to end. And how does it end? It ends by eliminating the people who did it, by ending them as a threat. It ends by releasing every single hostage, both living and deceased. There should never have been a hostage. There should not be a hostage now. And then, when all of that is done, then we can begin the work, I hope, internationally, to providing the people of Gaza the kind of future that they deserve, but that they will never have as long as a group like Hamas exists. So that's been our focus. And obviously, we have been the focus and at the core of much of what we talked about. How do we achieve what I believe is a shared goal, not just of the United States and Israel, but of multiple countries around the world and certainly in the region who want to see the same outcome. And that's what we've been focused on. That's been the president's focus. And he wants that to all happen as soon and as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you asked a question. What was the tail end of your question?
Just if you could comment about, following your discussions of the past couple of days about Israel's plans with regard to Gaza City and potential expansion of the offensive there.
Well, I'm not going to talk about our tactical plans. I leave that to our military people in the field. But I have stated the cabinet's decision on 5 principles that I brought before it. And as Secretary Rubio correctly said, this war could end now. And it requires the first step for Hamas to lay down its arm, to release all our hostages. And I'll bring you the 3 other points that we put forward. One, the third is that Gaza should be demilitarized. Demilitarized is different from just laying down your arms, because you want to make sure that arms are not smuggled into Gaza and arms are not produced in Gaza. So demilitarization is the third point. Overriding Israeli security responsibility is the fourth point, to make sure that there's no resurgent terrorism, Hamas or from any other organization. And the last thing is to establish a transitional civilian government by people who do not advocate the destruction of Israel, do not educate their children to terrorism, finance terrorism, or launch terrorism. These are the 5 points, and we're committed to doing it. We're now, Secretary Rubio said, how do you achieve this? How do you achieve the release of the hostages and eliminating Hamas if you keep Hamas there? If they surrender, lay down their arms, then you can do the rest without battle. And at any point, if you can do something without battle, it's better. Having been in battle, I can tell you it's not a lot of fun. And to see your friends die next to you is not a lot of fun. Or maimed for life, that's not a lot of fun. So if we can achieve this by having a Hamas surrender, all the better.
One last question.
I don't know. בבקשה.
תודה. אברהם חסון, ערוץ 14. ראש הממשלה, מהם הצעדים המשותפים כתגובה אפשרית להצהרה עתידית על מדינה פלסטינית באו"ם, והאם הועלתה אפשרות לחלת ריבונות ביהודה ושומרון כתגובה לצעד העתידי?
צעד העתידי הוא צעד עתידי, אתה לא חייב לחשוף אותו לפני כן, אבל ברור שאם נוקטים פעולות חד-צדדיות נגדנו, אז פשוט מזמינים פעולות חד-צדדיות מצידנו.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you.
And from that press conference, we now turn to DW's Jerusalem bureau chief, Tanya Kremer. Tanya, why this visit from Rubio now? What's behind this?
Well, I mean, Marco Rubio said it very clearly when he arrived. He wanted to get some clarity on Israel's next steps after, the strike in Qatar last week that targeted actually the Hamas negotiating team, as far as we understand, but also, target was a strike on a sovereign country at the time, and also a country that has U.S. military assets. Now, this is what we've just been hearing now in this press conference. Both leaders here have spoken to the media. What was interesting to hear basically here is that, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu used this press conference to emphasize, or his statement to emphasize on this really strong bond. And that is, how he sees the visit of Marco Rubio here in the region in Israel yesterday and today. And he also used it to praise U.S. President Donald Trump for his really strong friendship. He actually used the word, this is the greatest friend that Israel ever had. And he also thanked him, of course, for his role during the Iran-Israel war in June. And what we've also been hearing a lot, these questions now, of course, from journalists about the, Israel's plans when it comes to the invasion of Gaza City. Now, Marco Rubio continued and reiterating basically the goals that U.S. President Trump has laid out, that first of all, the 48 hostages that still remain in Gaza that are held there since October 7 have to be brought home, and that Hamas needs to be removed from power. What we didn't hear from him, basically, and he was asked several times about it, is that there will be pressure from the U.S. not to go ahead with this military operation in Gaza City.
DW's Tanya Kremer there, reporting from Jerusalem. Thank you, Tanya. Now, that press conference in Israel took place as an emergency summit of Arab and Muslim countries gets underway in Doha to discuss a response to last week's Israeli airstrike against Hamas in the Qatari capital. Speaking ahead of the summit, Qatar's Prime Minister said his country would not tolerate any violation of its sovereignty and that it was, quote, time for the international community to punish Israel for all the crimes it has committed. The meeting comes after a weekend in which more than 40 people died in Israel's Gaza offensive. Israel is warning residents of Gaza City to evacuate to what it calls a humanitarian zone in the territory's south.
Among the ruins of Gaza City, Israel's strikes are intensifying. Its ramped-up offensive, which it says aims to eliminate Hamas's final stronghold, has destroyed multiple buildings in recent days. Now it's warning civilians to leave before more soldiers are sent in. While many have left, hundreds of thousands are estimated to still be in Gaza City.
We went to the south and came back from the south because there's no room there either. Now we're just sitting here under God's mercy.
Hopes for an end to the fighting in Gaza took a massive hit last week when Israel carried out a strike on Hamas leaders in the Qatari capital, Doha. Qatar has been instrumental in negotiating an end to the conflict and is now hosting an emergency summit with leaders from Muslim and Arab countries to decide next steps.
It's time for the international community to stop applying double standards and punish Israel for all the crimes that it has committed. Israel should understand that its genocidal wars that target our brotherly Palestinians with the goal of uprooting them from their own land and displacing them will not succeed no matter what Israel says.
Qatar and Israel are both key allies of the United States. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday, presenting a united front.
Under President Trump and Secretary Rubio and their entire team, this alliance has never been stronger.
Qatar has said it remains committed to working with Egypt and the United States for a ceasefire in Gaza after nearly 2 years of war.
Abdullah Al-Hamar is the Qatari ambassador to Germany. He told us more about the Doha summit, and we asked about his expectations from the US Secretary of State's visit to Israel.
I think we are expecting with our friends, the Americans are always supporting Qatar. Our relation with the Americans are excellent, and we are allies of the Americans. And I think they should tell Netanyahu to stop this kind of things that, flaming the whole areas and hitting Qatar. This is not acceptable. And he was threatening to hit Qatar again. And this is something that, even his ambassadors in UN was saying that they are ready to hit Qatar again, and this is something crazy, really. And I think the American should exert a lot of pressures on Netanyahu. We are trying. First, we are evaluating the situations. We've been hit very badly. We have lost a few Qatari citizens that been killed. And we are really evaluating the whole situation with mediations with the Israelis. I think the momentum is very high. The Qatari people are very angry, and we have to assess everything now. I think we will see what will come out of this conference today. The Arabs and the Muslim organizations, Islamic organizations, and we will assess everything. Now we are in the process of assessing the situations in Qatar in general, and our move and our actions.
The Qatari ambassador Abdullah Al-Hamar there speaking to us earlier. Now, Qatar's Prime Minister has called for Israel to be punished over this strike, accusing it of state terrorism. We asked Mohammed Sanan Syed, a lecturer in international relations at the University of Wolverhampton in the UK, whether this summit is likely to back that demand with real consequences.
The main thing that the summit can actually do is that they will go ahead and, file complaints maybe with the UN, maybe with some of the international bodies that exist, which may or may not have severe consequences, at least in the short term. I don't think there's any actual chance of military escalation over here because the capacity of these nations, especially Qatar, is not as strong as, let's say, Israel, right? And they do not have that battle readiness the way a country like Israel does. However, in the medium to long term, I'm quite sure that you will see a lot more, maybe more soft power approaches being taken. For example, Al Jazeera, being more active over time, or even Qatar working with maybe lobbying groups within Washington to ensure that these sort of steps are reduced and minimized as much as possible. So to what extent consequences are going to take place, I would say that at the moment you could say it would be more minimal, but over the medium to long term, that it could increase. And that's something that we've seen even before, where, for example, during the blockade of Qatar by the other GCC nations, it actually managed to diversify a lot of its food imports, for example, and it managed to, over a long term, managed to achieve some level of self-sufficiency. So this sort of self-sufficiency is something that Qatar will try to achieve maybe over the next 4 to 5 years or so, at least.
Here in Germany, the far-right